Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with Pro Wrestling Logic. Been a little longer than I would like, but work has been busy. We are going to discuss the June 15th, 2020 edition of Raw here. If you're new to the channel, and I know a lot of you are, please like, subscribe, comment below, do all that good stuff. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so we can send some money to various charities, including but not limited to the COVID relief funds that are available, both in my area and nationally. So if you could help by subscribing, that would be awesome. Always good when we have new subscribers anyway. But in any event, we are going to discuss Raw for the week, and I just got to bring my notes up here as they seem to have closed in the window. Overall, not a bad program. Better than I expected with the transition to Bruce Pritchard being in charge and Paul Heyman not being part of the programming affairs. Overall, there weren't that many plotline holes, which is a good thing. I will be having the Backlash edition up as well, probably if not overnight tonight, very early tomorrow. Not as timely as I'd like, but again, work calls. Overall, too, and I've got to say this, for the most part, the Randy Orton stuff is the highlight, which is weird for me because I've never really been a Randy Orton guy for several years. I did like him in the early 2000s. I did not like him so much in the last 5 or so years. I felt like he was phoning it in, but for whatever reason, this issue with Edge and such has really taken him to another level and really gotten him to kind of be more, I guess, inspired, caring, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, but that is there, and he by far is the highlight of the program tonight. Again, I'll go into the pay-per-views issue when we get back there, probably in the next audio. But anyway, they announced to begin the show. They announce the Drew McIntyre and R-Truth against Bobby Lashley and MVP in a tag match. Asuka against Nia Jax, and an appearance from Dominic Mysterio. Randy Orton comes out to start the show. Good way to start the show. Although, and I kind of question, I mean, when you look at it, Orton's been around 21, 22 years, something like that. Most of them 2003 forward on the main roster, and 2002, 2003 forward on the main roster. So over a decade and a half on the main roster. And to be putting steam behind a guy who's got, 20 years on his body really just it shows the lack of foresight by the writers at WWE that he needs to be in this position with 2 decades on him. It just doesn't make sense, and it really does speak to how out of touch those who have been writing the program in the last, I'd even say, decade have been in terms of building new stars. It takes 3 years, probably 4 years, to build a star to a reasonable level if you do it right. And we're talking about megastar at the level of a Cena, Orton, Rock, Austin, something like that. It can be done, but you do have to have a certain level of talent. But also, it takes a good bit of time to do it. And they haven't done it consistently with anybody. I mean, Drew McIntyre is the most consistent they've been with a guy probably in at least 3 or 4 years. And I don't know that they didn't take a step backwards tonight with the tag match. But anyway, Orton comes out. He says he considers, or Tom Phillips, the shill of the week, says that many consider last night's greatest wrestling match ever. I don't think so. There is a confirmation that Edge tore his triceps, which I'll say here, you're 45, 46, 47 years old, mid to late 40s, and you tear a tricep. Is it really time to give it up? Is it really time? Do you need to come back after that? You probably want to, but do you need to, especially if you got young kids at home and that to consider? But anyway, they say that Edge had surgery this morning, and Orton says he humiliated and embarrassed Edge, and he wrote the final chapter in his story And the odd thing is, somebody seemed to support this. So I guess the idea that bad deeds get booed is kind of lost in the performance center. I don't know. Anyway, so he said he knew Edge wouldn't be able to return. He said he is he needed his way to save him the way that Edge had saved Orton years ago. Orton said he won the greatest wrestling match ever, which made him the greatest ever, and he didn't need a title to prove it. Orton thanked Edge for restoring the fire inside of him. He reminded him what it's like to be a legend killer. Now, that means they brought back the legend killer gimmick, which Joe reiterates on the bridge over into Raw Talk at the end of the program, which I'm going to say it right now. This is culminating in either the return of CM Punk, the return of The Rock, the return of somebody big, either at maybe the Rumble or, maybe I don't think they'd go Mania next year. It's too long a stretch for that. But there's a big return coming because they wouldn't be going back to the Legend Killer if there wasn't a legend that's going to put him in his place. And I'm running through legends. I don't think you're going to get Hulk Hogan. You're not going to get Steve Austin back, I don't think. I just threw that in there for the level of magnitude. My bet is that this leads to Rock at either Rumble or Mania next year. That's my gut feeling. Now, I could be way off base and they have no plan for this. But if they have no plan for this and they're putting this much steam behind Orton, then they literally are moving towards brain dead, and somebody needs to really take over creative. In any event, he wished Edge was here to tell him, but he wasn't. He said he punted Edge in the head. He tore his triceps right off the bone. He said he knew when Edge got injured in the match, but he kept going because Edge needed to go home to his wife and kids. He says he hopes that Edge climbs the mountain. He said he may get cleared in July of 2029. And Orton smirks at this. Now, from a psychological perspective, I mean, on the depths of the character part, I like this. Orton is your classic narcissistic sociopath. So he feigns caring about Edge. He feigns caring about Christian later in tonight's program. But really, all he really cares about is himself. And as long as there's a satisfying conclusion to the story where somebody puts him in his place, preferably someone with legendary ties, and I actually thought they were going to involve Ric Flair in something physical tonight just because he was in the building. As long as they pay it off at the end, it's fine, but I lost my faith in WWE to pay storylines off well. So Christian interrupts. He asks what kind of man Orton is. Orton says he's a cold, calculated SOB. Orton smiles, and Christian said Edge's career wasn't over. He's not going to quit now. Christian said Edge would get closure on his own terms and not Orton's. Orton says this wasn't about Christian because it's never about Christian. He says Christian's jealous. Orton saw it in his eyes. He knew he wanted one more match. Christian said no, but Orton kept pushing it. Orton said Christian wasn't cleared to compete, so he challenged him to a non-sanctioned match. Christian appears reasonably worried about this. He said the offer expires at the end of the night, and he would prove that there's nothing more, that Christian's nothing more than a coward. They talk about Christian's injuries, but didn't say the word concussions, which ultimately is what I believe ended Christian's career. Charlie Caruso asks Selena Vega about Angel Garza, if Angel's actions last night may have cost him the championship. on the pre-show for the Backlash pay-per-view last night. And then Garza's heartbroken, felt sorry for him. That seems about as real as the sincerity of a ambulance chasing lawyer. Garza says he feels sorry for Kevin Owens. Asked Caruso if she wanted to do an interview with him in the ring after the match. Zelina Vega was not amused by this. Andrade appeared and shook Garza's hand. Andrade wishes them well against Owens, but if he lost, he said that would be painful. Obviously, these two aren't getting along anymore. So, we go to Kevin Owens against Angel Garza. They go about 6 3/4 minutes. Fine match, I guess. It wasn't anything to write home about. And even though I'm not an Andrade fan, I am starting to grow on Garza a bit. So, I mean, the fact that he loses here, it makes no sense to me. Kevin Owens, he can take a loss here and there. He should take losses more often, being that they're trying to, quote, rebuild the roster, and or at least that's what they're telling executives. The reality is they don't know what they're doing week to week, and it shows. But, as far as the match itself, Owens chopping Garza in the corner. Garza is distracted by the music of Andrade, and so Owens stops the attack. Garza gets knocked out of the ring and into a argument with Andrade. This leads to Zelina Vega leaving, which, I mean, they built her up so well as a power manager, and now they've killed it. Again, this just shows that they don't have the chops to do long-term storytelling anymore. And before anybody says, oh, but wrestling's changed and you can't keep people's attention anymore, I'm sorry. Storytelling as a concept, if you look at TV, hasn't changed. Wrestling may have a little bit, but not so much that people can't hold out if the storytelling is good. Anyhow, so Garza's in control a little bit after the break. He's going after the leg of Owens. Andrade distracts the referee. Garza waits for Owens to turn around to attack him. And then Owens catches Garza with a stunner for the win. I mean, this is nothing against Kevin Owens. I like Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens can be used very well in certain roles. I wouldn't mind seeing him instead of Apollo Crews as the U.S. champion, just as an example. But if you're going to put him in there with the younger guy, it should be to put the younger guy over because you're building for the future, not living in the past. Anyhow, so Zelina marches out post-match. She tells both of her men to stop fighting. They need to fight together, and they eventually leave with her. MVP and Lashley, speaking backstage, one of the female announcers of the week comes up upon them. MVP says they're having a private conversation and told her to go back to journalism school. Man, awesome line. I just, in the real world, you wouldn't run up on people having what appears to be a private conversation. Of course, in the real world, we wouldn't have to acknowledge that the camera was or wasn't there. But anyhow, the idea that these announcers just randomly pop up on people didn't need to be addressed, and MVP does it really well here. Lashley says they're discussing strategy for a tag match tonight. How much strategy do you need when one of your opponents is R-Truth, who is headed for 50? The announcer presses for comment about Lana, her involvement, and says that MVP says Lashley was cheated out of his opportunity last night due to the issues that Lana caused. MVP and Lashley come out. Lashley says that last night was MVP says that last night's ruined by Lana. And then basically says that Drew took advantage of this. Who wouldn't to hold on to a championship where you can make more money, at least ostensibly? He says this is all Lana's fault, and it's her fault that Lashley isn't champion right now. He said that in fact, if Drew was a man, he'd put up the championship. And he says that McIntyre should put up the championship if he was any sort of champion at all. Lana enters. She blames Lashley for being the one to ban her from the ring. And then she put his career over hers, dyed her hair, and got a divorce for him. And then, MVP says that Lashley was nowhere near the title picture when she was involved. Lana tries to reason with Lashley and called them a good team, says they had a good marriage. Lashley asks them when was the last time she did anything other than get likes on social media. Ouch, burn. He then says she published their sex life. I guess this is an Instagram angle I know nothing about. I don't want to. She said if she was using him for that, she would have slept with someone more famous like Drew, which is actually where I imagined they were going. I could see Lana turning on Lashley because she wasn't getting attention and trying to butter up to Drew and having it not work out and then her having to find somebody else. But Lashley says he wants a divorce. He left with MVP and smiles at Lana before exiting. Now, how stupid is this? Okay, so you wait almost a decade and a half for a championship match. You lose the championship match, and it's because of your wife who's been costing you left and right anyway. And you don't go and have the conversation about divorce, I don't know, off camera after the match, this morning over breakfast, on the way to the performance center, in the back while everybody's in catering. No, you have the conversation about wanting a divorce right here in front of all the world to see. Stupid. And the thing of it is, no one cared about the marriage, so in reality, the people who aren't there to cheer for this, although supposedly they've let some minor fans in, and I say minor meaning a small amount, not minor as in children, they've let some fans in now, but reality, those few fans, 10, 15, 100, whatever it is, do you think they're going to care about a divorce between Lashley and Lana? No. So you've just made Lashley, this killer heel potentially, look like a complete putz because he can't handle his personal business off camera. Stupid. Anyway, so Sarah, whatever her schnappenapper name is, or whatever the heck her name is, interviews the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders, who suddenly, after weeks of competing against each other in everything from turkey leg eating to bowling, are friends. So somehow we all went to Hug It Out school, or we got some counseling, or we did yoga together or something, and we're all friends. Anyway, they're interrupted by Akira Tozawa and his ninjas. I thought the ninjas were just for the stupid cinematic episode we had last night. Oh no! We have ninjas. I guess, as weekly recurring characters now. No, this is bad. There is a gentleman by the name of Jordan Geblin or something like that, and I know I'm mutilating his last name, but he's the rather tall, 7-foot-plus fellow under a mask as a ninja. He shows up with Tozawa. Ford tells his friends he has an idea on how to handle this, and I think this is a really stupid idea. So we have Next, an 8-man tag team match as the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders defeat Akira Tozawa and 3 ninjas with the tall ninja who does not get in the ring. Now, again, Tozawa is stupid. If you have a guy who is standing around and he's 7 foot tall and he's probably 350 pounds, one would assume, and you don't put him in the ring, what? This is dumb. Again, like, I'm not even talking wrestling booking dumb. I think most children who are telling a story could go, let the tall guy fight. I think by about 3rd or 4th grade, children could figure out, let the tall guy beat him up. You know, and I know building anticipation, but if Great Khali and Giant Gonzalez and the various tribe of taller gentlemen that they have had over the years is any indication, I do not have much faith in Mr. Tall and Lengthy being a world-class athlete. No offense to him, but even if he was, the odds of him being able to show it are limited because of the misnomer that in wrestling psychology, big guys should stay big guys, which I don't have a problem with, except when you build up a big guy, he should do at least a few impressive things. Anyway, the Street Profits are dancing among the audience during their entrance, which kind of defeats the need for the plexiglass that they put up, you know, social distancing, and then we go dance. I mean, personally, I think the COVID thing is a bit overrated. That's a personal opinion, nothing more, nothing less. But if you're going to put forward the idea that that in fact we are going to adhere to social distancing and then have wrestlers not do it, what was the point of doing it? Anyway, the Viking Raiders and Street Profits win quickly. Ford picks up the pinfall, but one of the Viking Raiders hits a splash too. Ivar was the one that hit the splash. Tozawa never sees in-ring action. Tozawa enters the ring with his rather tall drink of water. The Viking Profits huddle around and they raise a glass. This brings out the Big Show. Yes, so yet another guy who's all but retired comes wandering out to the ring. So we've had Christian so far. We've had the Big Show. Later we get Ric Flair. So basically the strategy that Vince McMahon has, and Bruce Pritchard and everybody associated has, to rejuvenate Raw and SmackDown, which are dying because of the pandemic, no pun intended, for those that are offended. Bad choice of words, and I apologize. But the ratings that are tanking because of the pandemic, we bring back people that are irrelevant legends. That's our solution. Anyway, Show knocks out all the ninjas. Tozawa and his rather large compadre run away post-haste. Charlie Caruso brings out Seth Rollins and says Dominic is coming to Raw. Rollins is glad for this. I don't quite understand why. Rollins felt that Dominic's presence, or says he feels the presence, and he says he has a message for Ray tonight. Now, why would a heel be excited about the very young, I think 21-year-old son of his rival, who he somehow is trying to save, being in the building? I don't. Again, logic hole. Pro wrestling logic. There is none here. Anyhow, Rollins is out and says that Ray declined his invitation on his family's behalf. Ray shows up on the screen, and he didn't know that Dominic was there. He said it was too late to stop him. By the time he found out, Ray knew what Rollins was capable of and began warning him not to mess with his son. Rollins says he wouldn't hurt Dominic and wanted to help him. Rollins says that Dominic was part of the future and he wanted Ray to encourage him to join his stable. So wait, you blind me and I'm going to send my kid to be mentored by you? That's some awesome Jim Jones logic, but no. So Ray calls him crazy and says Dominic would never join. Rollins says he doesn't want to make things difficult. He said Murphy and Austin Theory were out looking for Dominic right now. Um, he then says Dominic should be sacrificed too. Jeez. Are we forming a religion based on sacrifice here? Ray said if Rollins had his goons touch his son, he would end him. Didn't he already threaten to do that earlier? Rollins recalled hearing Dominic saying the words eye for an eye. He said Dominic was an adult. He could make his own decisions. He could choose to be on the right side or the wrong side of the situation. And then Rollins starts thanking Ray. Dominic appears from behind. He attacks Rollins. Nails him with the steel steps. Murphy and Theory ran out as Ray implored Dominic to run. Dominic managed to escape them and bailed. I didn't like this. I mean, look, Ray's son could be the future of the business. I haven't seen him wrestle enough. There are a good number of independent matches out there. I have been meaning to check them out. Maybe I'll do so in the next little while to see what Dominic has. However, he should not be able to outsmart three people who have been on national television for not several years in the case of Austin Theory, but certainly Rollins and to a lesser degree Murphy, who've had national television experience for years. Again, this is stupid. How does somebody who hasn't done this before somehow magically know right where to put things, right what to do, and not get beat to smithereens? No, really bad idea. Anyway, R-Truth is insincerely offers his condolences to Lashley. He can't say the word condolences and says condominium among other things. Bray Wyatt returns to SmackDown this week according to an advertisement. Lashley and Truth walk around Lashley and MVP walk around looking for Truth. That's what I was going for. So Truth has been kidnapped by one of the ninjas under the ring. This brings back memories of Hornswoggle. Maybe that's another legend for Randy Orton to kill. I don't know that Hornswoggle would qualify as a legend, but killing little people usually gets people to pay attention. Anyway, so before they could do anything, McIntyre appears. They argue for a bit. MVP challenged them to a winner-take-all tag match for the championship and the 24/7 championship. Truth accepted on McIntyre's behalf, at which point McIntyre, who's fought for over a decade and a half to be the WWE champion, should have knocked Truth into next week because that's what a real person would do. McIntyre instead is just annoyed like this is a kid's show. And Truth did not appear to understand his mistake, his folly, or the fact that he is being made to look like a bumbling idiot on national TV for the sake of some slapstick, stupid comedy. Anyhow, the Iconics are up next. They defeat Liv Morgan and Natalya in just under 2.5 minutes. This is sad because I get the sense that this means Liv Morgan's push has been somewhat scaled back, if not eliminated. This makes me sad. Morgan is going to start, but instead Natalya tags herself in and says she's got it. Iconics attack her right away, and Natalya tags out, tags to Morgan, who gives a diving dropkick away, and Peyton Royce breaks up the cover. And Natalya tries to throw Royce out of the ring, but Royce gets clunked out instead. The ref's distracted. Morgan put Kay in a schoolgirl. Referee noticing Kay kicks out, and Royce blind tagged in. And then they gave Morgan their joint finish, and that's the end of that match. Post-match, the Iconics challenged Bayley and Sasha for the tag team championships next week if they didn't accept. And they said they knew someone that would make the match if they didn't accept. Anyhow, yeah, no. I'm not a fan of the Iconics. That's one. Two, even if I were a fan of the Iconics, they don't belong challenging for a championship match this soon after last night's debacle. They've proven that they don't have it in the ring. Big Show approaches Christian, warns him that Orton didn't pick an unsanctioned match for no reason. He said that's also not the only way that he could compete. He said he could get cleared by the doctors. I don't know what Big Show knows, but that's what he implied anyway. He says Orton can do anything he wanted. Show was telling him not to do it, or that's what Christian thought. Big Show refers to him as Jay, which is his actual first name. I don't get why. Some days he's Christian, some days he's Jay. Maybe Orton's multiple personalities is rubbing off on Big Show or something. Anyway, he said if it were him, he'd punch Orton in the face. However, he's 7 foot, 450 pounds. One punch from the Big Show is a little bit different than Christian taking the risk of getting back in the ring post concussions, don't you think? Anyway, Christian said he knows what he has to do. Natalya's mad at Morgan. She places the blame on her for making rookie mistakes. She could see why Ruby Riott left her. So basically, Natty is the bitter veteran who wants to blame her losses on everybody else. Lana appears and says she felt her pain. She thought she'd be married to a WWE champion right now. Instead, she's getting a divorce. So apparently, this means that Natty and Lana are going to be some sort of alliance from here forward. Perhaps a team somewhere in the future. Anyhow, Christian accepts Orton's challenge in the midst of all this. Anyway, MVP approaches Apollo Crews backstage. He tells him to work smart, not hard. MVP noted that he was the longest reigning U.S. champion in history, and advised Crews to listen to him. Crews said he wanted to fight and be a fighting champion. He thanked him for the offer, but declined. So basically, MVP said the only way you're going to keep the championship is with him in his corner. So Charlotte's backstage with her dad, Ric Flair. She wanted to know if someone was getting under Charlotte's skin, and Charlotte said a lot of people get under her skin. This seemed like a poorly taped segment. So Apollo Crews and Shelton Benjamin have a non-title match just to fill time. They go just a scotch over 2 minutes. So Shelton Benjamin advises Crews to take MVP's offer, which begs the question, why doesn't Benjamin do the same? Anyhow, Benjamin tries a schoolboy with his feet on the ropes. This does not happen. Crews uses a schoolboy and grabbed the ropes when the ref didn't see for the pinfall. Benjamin's not happy. Tozawa and his buddies approach Truth in the back. Truth threatened to kick all of them. I don't know how that would have worked. Anyway, McIntyre showed up and begged Truth to understand the dangerous nature of the situation they were in. Truth gets serious and said he understood. I don't think he did. There is a reasonably long recap of Asuka and Nia Jax, which we didn't really need. We come back. Truth approaches McIntyre. Truth spoke to somebody, somewhere, and now only the championship that'll be on the line is McIntyre's championship. Again, this is where you hit a guy with a lariat so hard he falls out of his boots. But anyway, he also reveals that even if Truth gets pinned, McIntyre would lose the championship. He said he knew what it was like to lose a title and to trust him. No. Anyhow, Profits and Raiders discuss their competition. Show approaches. He thanks them for their help earlier. Show has an idea how to end the competition. Ivar says carpool karaoke. Show says this is a really bad idea. Show suggests a tag title match for next week. What a novel idea. A wrestling match on a wrestling program. Who would have thought of that? Anyway, Show leads a We Want the Smoke dance. Hoorah. We have had less than a quarter hour of wrestling on this almost 3 hour wrestling program. We go to Drew McIntyre and R-Truth, who defeat MVP and Bobby Lashley in 9 minutes and 10 seconds, the longest match of the night so far. McIntyre's in control, sets up MVP for the Claymore. Truth tags himself in and gets beat up by MVP. Lashley throws Truth into the barricade. We go to commercial. Great place for it. And MVP boots Truth for a 2 count. McIntyre waited nervously. Truth ducks a boot by doing the splits. Nails a kick. McIntyre tags in, hits Lashley with a clothesline and an underhook suplex. Lashley manages to tag out. McIntyre goes for MVP, gives him the Future Shock DDT, but Lashley breaks up the cover. Truth tries to help, gets in the way. Lashley tosses him from the ring. Lashley tries a spear. Truth drops him onto the steps. McIntyre gives MVP the Claymore. He tags in Truth. We don't know why. Truth hit an assisted splash and pinned MVP. McIntyre retains the title. And Truth and McIntyre pose together. Hoorah. Ric Flair approaches Christian. He says, Flair said his family wouldn't care if he backed down. The locker room would forget about it. Christian appreciated the advice, but he says he's got to do what he's got to do. I mean, it's nice of Flair to mentor him, but what sort of manhood would Christian have if he backed down at this point? I mean, in a world full of warriors, Christian would look like a punk if he backed out. Now, anyway, we go back and we've got a Bayley and Sasha Banks promo. Bayley is happy that they defended the championship successfully last night. She announces it's her birthday, as if the fans in the Performance Center is going to care about this. She says it's not just a birthday, it's a birthday week. And she plugs Wednesday when they're going to defend the championship against Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Nox before returning home to SmackDown. Banks tells the Iconics that they don't get to call the shots. Iconics interrupted. They bait Bayley into basically accepting the match. This causes problems between Bayley and Sasha again. And that's that. They get the championship match. The Iconics do some crampy junk comedy and get the match in the end. Rey Mysterio will return next week to Raw. Hoorah, hoorah. And then Asuka defeats Nia Jax in almost 9 minutes, just under. Jax cuts an inset promo where she calls Asuka a joke who got lucky last night. If Asuka's a joke, I'd hate to see Sirius. And there's a few missed spots in this. Asuka lets go of a submission. Jax takes a bit to get back in the ring. Catches her with a right hand upon re-entering. And Jax powerbombs Asuka on the outside, which leads to a break. Was that really necessary? I wouldn't take that. After the match, Asuka gets her knees up, and then she hits a Shining Wizard for a near fall. Jax is standing on the buckle. Asuka kicks her leg out of her leg, a la Owen Hart, and then Jax follows with double stomp for 2 count. They use the yes kicks. Jax blocks the final one, hits a headbutt and a Samoa drop, but Asuka knows her ring position and gets a foot under the ropes to break the pinfall. Jax freaks out and pushes the referee down, immediately gets disqualified. She regrets this maneuver, but instead, or it looks like she's going to get disqualified rather, and it's so vivid that I actually believe it happened. But in fact, Asuka applies a schoolgirl, the dreaded schoolgirl. The referee noticed and counted the pinfall. It is what it is. It's like more time filling junk. Orton asked Caruso if she thought Christian was a legend. She said yes. He agreed. He then said that Christian's legend would be destroyed by an RKO. And then this is so quick. I mean, it's less than 60 seconds. So Christian wears street clothes. He's got his fist taped up. Orton wears wrestling gear. So street fight. Old wrestler who makes challenge wears gear. Wrestler who is challenged wears street clothes. This is dumb. Anyway, so Ric Flair interrupts. Flair says he spoke to Edge. Christian didn't need to prove anything to anybody. Christian told Flair he had to do this. Bell rings. Flair gave Christian a low blow, and then Orton punted Christian. Orton takes a brief moment before pinning him for the win, and Orton gets in Christian's face to apologize before blaming him for it, and then trainers are out. They check on Christian. They backed him off. Orton yelled at Christian again, and they get him ready for the stretcher. Again, I love this character. I assume this is going to lead to some sort of re-evolution style formation or something. Although, I can't imagine Ric Flair being on the road full time, so that doesn't really make sense. But anyway, overall, the Orton stuff's the only thing you have to see. Everything else, skippable at best. But not as clunky as I expected. And that's saying a lot when there's one good segment on the show and everything else is skippable, and I consider that a good show. What does that say about the state of WWE? In any event, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. We'll be back hopefully late night tonight with the Backlash review, among other things. Also going to try and get some New Japan stuff in here since they're back up and running. But anyway, till next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.